would matter a lot in how India's own policies shape up, and also how China's interest in, for example, in Myanmar and Bangladesh shape up. We have seen a lot of transformation in the past few years within Northeast India in terms of connectivity, in terms of development. But a lot of this connectivity and development would not mean anything if it cannot open up to the proximate neighborhood. We see a lot of problems that we also, in terms of Myanmar, the conflict situation in Myanmar, and the conflict situation in Bangladesh, which is actually preventing us from meaningfully opening up the borders, while China has been able to actually do that in some ways in Myanmar and Bangladesh. So I feel that, in sense that Northeast India is very well poised, because the strength of Northeast India is also its communities. And we should not see the communities as, kind of isolated, but we are connectors to the larger international neighborhood. The communities of Northeast India has a rich history and a lot of goodwill in the past in terms of transboundary communities. So in that sense, especially with Bhutan, especially with Myanmar, and we see the case in Manipur, for example, Mizoram, so, and Nagaland as well. So these communities actually can be seen as the cultural connectors. And then actually that is what China is also doing. The para-diplomacy that is happening by China in Myanmar is actually based on these cultural connectors that they are using, leveraging. So we should also leverage those, and then I think that could actually make those openings meaningful for us.
Just a follow-up question to you, that is about opening up. Should India keep distancing itself from Bangladesh now, or should open up for more business?
I feel that Bangladesh is one country that actually can take us into a kind of, from being landlocked, what we always think traditionally of being landlocked, to being land-linked. And that's the kind of thing that we open up to have a separate access from the Siliguri corridor. And the Kaladan multimodal project that also passes through Mizoram and goes into Myanmar is also very, very strategic. But because of the conflict that is there in Arakan, we have not made progress. But we also have to see the layers of borders, how borders also operate in various layers. One is the political layer, but the other layer is the ecological layer. A lot of the ecological interdependencies that we actually share with our neighborhood will also mean a lot in terms of future migration patterns, future environmental disasters. And not only political factors can actually determine this kind of influxes and outflows, but also environmental. So I just wanted to propose this understanding that before nation-state borders came in, this larger neighborhood was a bioregion and an eco-region. And we also need to actually put in effective policies to actually manage the ecological layer as well. I'll just put that as a submission.
Coming to General, I vividly remember you had once mentioned, while I was also present in that occasion, when you were asked that what made you sleepless when you were sleeping in Fort William as the commander of the entire eastern region. You said about Doklam, I said about this corridor. You had one side in the north, Doklam, and another side is the northern in Bangladesh. The distance is about roughly about 100 kilometers, and 22 kilometers is actual boundary. Strategic, communication, defense, everything is about 22 kilometers. How serious the problem is? Because we don't visualize for a normal citizen, unlike you, that Doklam is not far away. That way China and Bangladesh is actually a distance of only about roughly about 100 kilometers separating between two countries.
You see, when you look at Northeast geographically, the Northeast shares 90% of its borders with 5 different countries, and only 10%, which is through the Siliguri corridor, the Northeast is linked to the balanced part of the country. So that 22 kilometers, which is the narrowest, and otherwise it opens up to about 100 kilometers, that's the basic lifeline of Northeast. Just to put some figures, on a daily basis, there are about 11 to 12 lakhs of vehicles which goes into Northeast through the Siliguri corridor. and raising a revenue of about 142 crores per day. So that's the sort of movement which take place through Siliguri corridor, and the alternate connectivity which we are trying to establish, whether through Myanmar by the Kalatan multimodal transport project, or through Chittagong port and then to Akhora and connecting towards Tripura, through Bangladesh or through Myanmar, are largely dependent on the situation in Myanmar and Bangladesh, which in the present circumstances is not at all conducive. So these alternate routes not having opened up, Siliguri corridor is extremely important to us because, and if we see the increasing footprints of China all around the narrow Siliguri corridor, in 2017 there was a 73 days standoff between Indian and Chinese forces at Doklam. Primarily, the Chinese forces were trying to come towards closer to the Siliguri corridor. We also see a lot of developmental activities in garb of infrastructure development in eastern Nepal, particularly in Kosi-Mesi corridor. They are creating Japak economic corridor, where a lot of Chinese presence is there, which just is located north of the Siliguri corridor. Even in northern Bangladesh, which is the southern part of the Siliguri corridor, we find in Rangpur division, there are increased Chinese infrastructure projects that are being undertaken. After the regime changes, we also heard that Second World War vintage airport, that's Lal Monir Hat, which is hardly any distance from the Siliguri corridor, being handed over to Chinese for development by the present Bangladeshi regime. So, in a situation like this, where we have increased Chinese footprint all around the Siliguri corridor, and the demographic changes within Siliguri corridor, and rising radicalization in Bangladesh, which can overflow into this Siliguri corridor, even if it's not a physical intervention in terms of military kinetic operation, a hybrid form of movement has the potential of cutting off the Siliguri corridor. So that's the biggest threat, I think, which we need to be cognizant of, and we need to take certain measures to circumvent and how to address this particular issue.
यूं ही नहीं ताज बन जाता है। शिल्पकारों का हुनर और चुनिंदा संगमरमर ताज को नायाब बनाते हैं। कुछ ऐसे ही चुनिंदा जगहों से बस खास ही चुनकर लाता है।